You've probably caught yourself doing this. You tell someone a version of a story, not a complete lie, just slightly adjusted. You left out the part where you were wrong. You moved the timeline a little. You described your intentions as better than they actually were, and then a week later you told the same story again, and it felt completely true. The brain does not store memories like a camera. It stores stories, and every time you retell a story, the brain quietly updates the file. Small adjustments become permanent. The version you have told the most times becomes the version you actually remember. And here's the part that changes everything. If the brain converts repeated statements into genuine beliefs, then whoever controls what gets repeated inside your head controls who you become. For most people, that has never been them. Why the liar believes it. When a person repeats a story enough times, the hippocampus, the part of the brain responsible for storing memories, stops attaching a "this is uncertain" flag to it. The repeated version becomes the default. The brain files it as fact. This is why the most convincing liars are not the ones who are good at acting. They are the ones who have been telling the same story long enough that they genuinely remember it that way. There is no performance happening. They are simply reporting what they believe. The exact same process runs in reverse inside you. Every story you currently carry about yourself, what you're capable of, how you perform under pressure, whether you are the kind of person who finishes things, went through that same system. Repeated input, reconstruction, filed as memory, filed as identity. Most of those stories were not chosen. They were absorbed from other people, from repeated failures, from things said to you once that your brain decided were worth repeating to itself for the next 20 years. The same process that turns someone else's words into your deepest beliefs about yourself can be run deliberately in any direction you choose. The stories you tell yourself are already shaping everything. Think about the last time you were about to do something uncomfortable, a difficult conversation, a new skill, putting something you made in front of other people. Notice what happened in the few seconds before. There was a voice, something like, "You're not good at this." You always freeze in these situations. This is not really for someone like you. That voice is not your personality, it is a recording, a story that got repeated enough times that the brain filed it as a fact about who you are. And because it feels like a memory, because it has the certainty of something you know to be true, you treat it as information rather than as a story someone started telling at some point and never stopped. You act from it, you make decisions based on it, you avoid things because of it, you limit what you attempt because of it. Self-suggestion, how to start the conversion. The brain converts repeated statements into beliefs. It does not require the statement to already feel true. It does not require enthusiasm or emotional intensity. It requires repetition and consistency. Not with affirmations that feel fake, not with forcing yourself to believe something you clearly do not believe yet. That approach fails because the brain detects the mismatch between what you're saying and what you actually believe, and it files the mismatch, not the statement. The approach that works is quieter. You choose a statement that is directionally true, not wildly aspirational, just slightly ahead of where you currently are. I figure things out. I follow through more than I used to. I am someone who shows up, and you repeat it the way you would state a fact. Every repetition goes through the same process that Gary's brain ran on his story about the report. The hippocampus receives it, reconstructs it, files it with slightly less uncertainty than before. Do it enough times, and the flag that says, "This is aspirational," quietly disappears. The statement becomes a memory. The memory becomes identity. You're not lying to yourself. You're using the brain's own system to choose which version of yourself gets filed as real. Confidence is a story. Confidence is not a personality trait some people are born with. It is a stored narrative, the accumulated result of a brain that has heard a specific story about itself enough times that the story feels like fact. The person who walks into a difficult situation and feels genuinely certain has a brain that has filed, "I handle things like this," as a memory. Maybe that came from real experience. Maybe from other people consistently reflecting that version back. Maybe from the stories they started telling themselves deliberately. The origin does not matter to the brain. It just knows what it has processed the most times. This is why confidence in one area does not automatically transfer. A person who is completely certain in a professional context can fall apart in a social one, because the brain has different files for different contexts. Visualization is not imagination. It is memory creation. Visualization works because the brain cannot fully distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. When you visualize an event in enough detail, the physical sensations, the specific actions, the environment, the outcome, the brain processes it through many of the same neural pathways as an actual experience. It does not get filed under "things I imagined." It gets filed alongside "things that happened." A person who has visualized handling a difficult conversation successfully 50 times has something that functions like 50 memories of handling that conversation well, even though it has never actually happened. When the real situation arrives, the brain reaches for the file, and the file has entries. The uncertainty that would otherwise dominate gets crowded out by stored experience the brain believes is real. The key is specificity. Vague visualization produces vague filing. The brain needs detail to process the experience as real. Where are you? What are you doing with your body? What are you saying? How does it feel when it goes the way you want? The more specific, the more the brain treats it as an event rather than a fantasy. The stories other people told you were never facts. Most of the stories currently running inside your head were not your conclusions. They were other people's repeated statements that your brain absorbed during a period when it had no strong competing narrative to file instead. Someone said you were not disciplined. You heard it enough times. The brain ran the process, filed it. Now it feels like a fact. Someone communicated, not always in words, that you were not the capable one, not the one people expected much from. Enough repetition, same result. Those stories have the feeling of truth because of how long they have been in the file, not because of what they actually describe. Old is not the same as accurate. Repeated is not the same as true. You're not trying to feel different overnight. You are giving the brain different input to process, consistently, over time, until the new version gets filed alongside the old one, and then ahead of it. The brain believed the lie someone told it about you. It filed it. It acts from it every day. The only question is whether you're going to start choosing what gets repeated next.